You're listening to the Redneck Hockey Podcast, the official gatekeepers of the Trip Tracy fan club and the only Carolina Hurricane show fueled solely on barbecue, Bowberry biscuits, and Storm Brew. As always, I'm your host Griffin Daughtry, and I'm joined by my fellow Caniac co-hosts Connor Weeks and Alex Pace. This week, we discuss the Canes' chance at the President's Cup, the Tom Wilson controversy, and we answer questions from some of our Caniac listeners. If this is your first time listening, please consider subscribing to the show and following us on Twitter and Instagram. Without further delay, let's do that hockey. A to Z Pharmacy just followed us on Twitter. They have 12 followers, and they're following 29 people. Independent pharmacy in Cary. Hell yeah. All right, boys. Let's talk about hockey. Canes hockey. Even though I have a feeling we're about to talk about a lot of things that aren't Canes related because Tom Wilson. But anyway.
Do we say when we're recording, like what day, so people know?
Yeah, just for anyone who's listening, turns out that Hurricane schedules are not uniform and neither are ours. So we try to record every Tuesday, and we originally tried to record every Sunday. So that just shows you how good we are at keeping a set date for recording. But we're working on it. The goal is to have the podcast out once a week in the middle of the week, every week. Bear with us.
And hopefully it's mostly evergreen content.
Evergreen content is the goal. But who's to say? Who's to say?
So,
I think tonight will be an episode that will probably stand for a while. We'll see.
Yeah. So you want to start with the recap?
Yeah, I think the most exciting thing that has developed over the last 3 games is this team no longer lets one period bury them. And it goes from, we have a bad period, it turns into a bad game, but that's not the case anymore.
That's the nice thing that Tripp brought up during the game. He's like, there hasn't really been that many bad periods this whole season. But it is a good point. I mean, that's kind of the nice thing about Rod. He lets them know just how much they suck in between the periods. And so he does do a pretty good job firing them back up and sending them back on the ice. He slaps cheeks in the locker room. The boys are scared. They're not waiting around for that. They're like, no, daddy, no.
You don't want to disappoint Rod. You do not want to disappoint Rod Rennemore. Or Trip Tracy, honestly.
I don't want to disappoint either of them either.
No.
Or Chip Alexander.
Yeah, they got a lot of motivation to not drop more than one period. I think the first period has been overall our worst. I mean, if we had to choose one, I think the first period would probably. I think we've gotten better as games have gone on throughout the season. The third period being their best. I think that's just the conditioning, though.
Because the problem is the first period if they get down. But the thing that's been really interesting to watch is how almost surprised the Canes look when they realize that they're completely capable of coming back. Like they're always like, oh yeah, we're a good team. we can come back, and 1-0 is not a game changer really. It's just the beginning.
Yeah, they almost never look shell shocked. Even we're down 2 goals, rarely down 3 goals, but you still feel like they're gonna chip away and try to find a way to come back.
We've had the least amount of time trailing in the whole NHL of any team, which is amazing.
That's a fun nugget.
Yeah, a little fun nugget.
I just wanted to bring this up real quick, but every time I talk about a player on the podcast and I say something negative about them, they completely turn it around. The very first episode I brought up Dougie. It was on his cold streak, and I started talking shit. And then he got on a hot streak, and he's still on it. And then I brought up Geeky a few podcasts ago, and he's been on fire the last 2 weeks. And then I talked crap about Svetch's passing game last week, and the old Svetch is back. So basically, I just need to talk crap about all the boys every week, and we can see good things from here on out.
Yeah, who do we have that's on like a slump right now that we can talk about?
Well, I think I got them all out of the slump. I'm not sure there's anyone.
I don't think there's anybody.
I think I did my job.
Did Trocheck score tonight? I think he's like 10 games without a goal.
I don't really know if he's on a slump as so much as he's just not getting points. Like
Maybe
his play's still relevant. You know what I mean?
We got Svetch back. We got the Aho Svetch turbo line looks amazing. Jordan Stahl is chipping in still. Yeah, maybe Trocheck hasn't scored in a while. He's not really playing bad.
I think Trocheck's problem is he doesn't respond to our tweets about Bitcoin. If Trocheck responded to us, invested his money in Bitcoin, I mean, that's all we'd be talking about. He'd be slapping cheeks. He'd be scoring goals. It'd be great.
He's got like a presence on Reddit where he throws out his like mixtape stuff on YouTube. I think it's on YouTube.
I need to follow him on YouTube.
I don't know what it's called. Trocheck's Sick Beats or something.
Do they slap?
What was the old DJ that used to do the Kane stuff?
DJ Mr. Ills.
DJ Mr.
Yeah.
Ills. Trocheck's gonna, whenever he retires, instead of joining the coaching staff, he's gonna become DJ Mr. Ills.
Yeah.
Pretty sure he DJ'd a wedding I went to one time.
You know who else DJs? You remember when Elijah Wood was DJing for a while? There's nothing funnier than watching Frodo, like pump his hand behind a turntable set or whatever you want to call those things.
You throw in that Gandalf video where it's the guy dressed up as Gandalf at a rave and he's
Oh yeah,
yo-yos.
That was pretty wild.
So I just did some quick math, and if my math is correct, over an 82 game pace with our current points percentage number, we're on pace for 122 points.
God, are you sure this is the Hurricanes?
I said if my math is correct.
I trust you more than me, both of you. Y'all have useful mathematical oriented degrees, and your boy studied history. So
How many points did the Canes have in 06?
great question.
Oh, I don't know.
They clinched the wild card, didn't they? They beat Buffalo. Is that how that went down?
They beat Buffalo, I think, in the was it the semifinals they beat Buffalo?
Yeah. They beat Buffalo, and then they went and played Edmonton. Wow. Think about that, playing Buffalo and Edmonton in the playoffs.
We had 112 points that season. We finished first in the division. I'd like to look up our record on the calculate our Valley Sports era record.
Let's talk about Valley Sports, because I want to complain about Valley Sports. Why? All right, I understand that like Valley Sports bought the naming rights of like Fox Sports South, so it's not so much that it was like an actual structural change. It was just like logos and colors. That's the way that at least they explained it. But I guess Valley Sports felt the need to make their own app, and they wanted to change the entire user interface for everybody. That is the crappiest app I have ever used. Valley Sports, like, keeps fading out. Things won't load. I have to stop the pregame show and then load the game. I can't just it doesn't just feed into one another like the old Fox Sports Go app did. Like, it's literally a dumpster fire of an app right now. Sorry, Valley Sports. I'm just being honest.
Everyone hates it. I think everyone hates it. Yeah. I don't know it. I don't know the issues personally because I have alternate means of watching. A lot of people are upset though.
I was never a big proponent of the Fox Sports Go app. Like, it always gave me a bunch of problems too. Like, it would randomly freeze in the middle of the games. And of course, the Valley Sports app is exactly the same. But yeah, to your point, Griffin, I mean, even something as small as like the Twitter handles and whatnot just seamlessly went from Fox Sports to Valley Sports. And I'm sure other people have this experience as well. Like the app, the Valley Sports app, my Fox Sports Go app is like, it looks like it's kind of turning the page. Like, there's like a small black corner where you can still see the Fox Sports Go logo. I'm like, I didn't even have to download it for that. I will give them credit, say that like the interface and whatnot, like it actually is pretty aesthetically pleasing. Yeah. And you can like search teams and whatnot. But my first experience with it, I opened it up and I'm like, oh, cool. Like, it has the Braves on there. It knows I'm a Braves fan. And I was like, I wonder if I can get the Braves games, which you can't in this area. They're blacked out. So I opened it up. And it said that the Braves game was blacked out. Well, I'm like, all right, well, now I'm going to try the Hurricanes game. I should have known this was an ominous sign because I went over to the Hurricanes and it said that was blacked out for me too. And I'm like, I literally cannot have them both blacked out. So I pulled up my iPad and pulled up the Fox Sports Go app and put the Hurricanes game on. I'm like, this thing is just on crack. Yeah,
I've heard a lot of people are still using Fox Sports Go or like they still have access to using it. I think the Xbox updated ours, so we can't use it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Connor is like sitting there in the corner laughing because he just uses his little alternative means. And I did the same thing in college, and I'm like 5 seconds away from going back to that. To be fair, the streams are pretty bad too. They always freeze up, and you have to like find a different one, and someone will get shut down. I mean, alternative means.
Yeah, I would say the alternative stream or the things have gotten better. I don't know.
10 years made a big difference for the alternative means.
Yeah, alternative network. Yeah,
we only got a few more games left in the season, and then it's
playoffs. Yeah,
well, it's playoffs, but we also, there's this big thing that people keep talking about at the end of the season, the President's Trophy, which Rod said, "What's that? I don't care about that," which I thought was hilarious. He's just like, I think it's the most irrelevant trophy there is. He's like, we don't play for that. He like realized that he like was dissing the trophy, and he's like, all right, I got to rein it in a little bit. But he was definitely like, who cares? I don't care about that damn trophy. Let's win the Stanley Cup, which I thought was dope. Mic drop.
Yeah, especially now when it's hard to like really evaluate the best team when they know like you only play the same teams within your conference. I don't really know if it has like, the same weight before this year, so I don't know.
I think it would be cool. I'm not really that excited about it, to be honest. I'm just kind of excited to see them come out and, like even though there's not really a ton on the line right now, like they're still playing well. They're acting like this every game. They're still playing to get into the playoffs. Like I know we were pretty concerned down the stretch. They're not really playing any high competition, and they're just buzzing right through these teams, and they're saying all the right things in interviews and whatnot. They're saying like, we don't want to form any bad habits, and we're seeing that still. But yeah, if you look up the President's Trophy, the first thing that comes up is President's Trophy curse. So I'm not so sure that that's something that we should be super excited about, because the last team that won the President's Trophy was the Blackhawks, and it says 2012 2013. So that could be a bad omen for sure.
Rod said that curse ain't real. We don't care about this curse. But I mean, yeah, I think it's a good point. Twitter seems to be very interested in them winning the President's Trophy. I'm more interested in us winning the division and making sure that the fourth team we play is in Dallas. I'm not really concerned about whether or not we get the trophy or not. Because like Rod said, I mean, like you can win the President's Trophy, but if you don't win the Stanley Cup, like you're not even going to think about the President's Trophy. It's just it's a banner that you get to hang up, which I guess would be cool for PNC because it's kind of a bannerless.
A barren.
it's quite the barren stadium, but whatever.
There's a lot of NC State basketball jerseys up there.
Go Pack.
The good thing about this team is that it's like just focused on what's in front of them and like laser focused, and just that's the mentality. And Rod's got him like tuned in for the playoffs. And if we do become the number one seed in the whole NHL, I think having home ice advantage throughout the whole playoffs would be great, especially our record at PNC this year.
So you're saying that the loudest house in the NHL might have the most home games potentially in the playoffs?
I hope so. Yeah, there's a good chance.
If Justin Trudeau allows it, it's going to boil down to whether or not Canada allows fans. I swear to God, if they don't have fans and they do another bubble over Canada, I'm going to be livid. Absolutely livid.
I mean, they're expecting to have fans at our games. It's just a matter of how many.
Well, they're expecting to, but I mean, if Canada doesn't have fans and they still have their crazy curfews and their lockdowns, the Canadian teams are going to complain about the fact that we have fans and they don't. And if that boils over into whether or not we can have fans at all, I mean, hopefully the NHL realizes like, look, that's a lot of money wasted if we don't have fans. Sorry, Canada, you're America's hat. That's your problem as usual. We're going to have fans in the stands. Hopefully, but you never know. America's hat does funny things.
Yeah, I mean, for a team like Carolina, the playoffs is just, I mean, the amount of money that they make on ticket revenue is just insane compared to other teams.
Yeah, I think playoff tickets go on sale for the Canes next Monday. I think, or for if you're a season ticket holder, I think we got the email for that. Don't quote me on that. If they do exist, I would like to go. And if we buy them and then Canada says, nah, I'm going to have a problem with Canada.
We need to keep an eye out for that, because I'm all in on some playoff tickets if and when the time comes that we can buy single game tickets.
Yeah. Whenever the decision is going to be, it's going to be based around money, and having people in the playoff, having fans in the playoffs means more money. So I think the league will try to do their best to have that happen.
Y'all want to dive into some of these fan questions, or we'll call them listener questions. I feel like fan is just it's a little too much. It's a little too much too early. They're Caniac listener questions. It's another beautiful week at the Redneck Hockey Podcast, and we have more listener questions that didn't come from Connor's brain 5 seconds before the podcast, and they are real people. Chelsea wanted to start us off this week. She said, who would we be okay with being poached by Seattle? Or I guess what's the best case scenario for the expansion draft for the Canes?
Can I start that off with a question? So can we go over the expansion draft, like how many players we get to keep? Because I know it's a certain number of wings and a certain number of defensemen, and then there's also like a time accrued in the league that prevents them from getting selected.
Are you asking for specifics? We don't do that here.
Well, I know Connor is more adept at that kind of stuff.
I had a
yeah, but now he's got to go find it.
I had a whole spreadsheet.
All right. So what does your spreadsheet say?
So you can protect the 7-3-1, or you can do the 8-1-1. So if you have more skaters like Colorado, you'll probably do the 8-1-1.
Break that down for us. Like we've got listeners who are in the 5th grade.
So how the expansion draft works and how they modified it from back in like the early 2000s and 90s. Each team gets to protect 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and 1 goalie. Or they can choose to protect 8 forwards instead of 7. And instead of 3 defensemen, they protect 1 and then still 1 goalie. Teams are protecting less players in the Vegas and Seattle expansions than before. So that's why Vegas was able to have a more competitive team than like the Capitals and like Minnesota and all those teams that came in. Seattle and Vegas gets to basically choose third line players instead of fourth line players.
What do we think is the best case scenario for the Hurricanes? I guess we're going to protect 7, right?
Yeah, I think personally they would do the 7-3-1 because we have way too many defensemen just to only protect 1.
Yeah.
Especially with Jacob and Dougie. And to everyone listening, I called Jacob Slavin Jacob because he spells his name with 2 C's. so it's Jaccob. Jacob.
Slavin, Dougie, who's a free agent, so that one's kind of on the fence. You got Slavin 1, Pesci 2. Who would be the third then? The third defenseman?
Bean, probably.
He's a service time guy, and he hasn't accrued that much time, or would we have to?
No, he does. He does. He is exposed. Jake Bean is exposed.
You're right. I think we have to expose Shea then. Brady Shea.
Yeah,
That's a tough one.
Another thing to be exposed is they have to be signed. Have a contract signed into next year and into Seattle's like first year of play, or be a restricted free agent. In Ned's case, he would be exposed. Even if you would just restricted him.
So Ron Francis was there the other night to snipe someone for sure, right?
Yeah, he's checking out. I think
Brady ran into the boards in an attempt to not leave. He's like, I'm not going.
Yeah, I really think like they're gonna choose Shea, and then Shea chose like the way out into the boards on that one. Yeah, a lot's gonna hinge on the Dougie contract. If he's UFA, Seattle gets 2 days to talk to UFA guys. And they're going to have a lot of room, to sign him if they wanted to. Throw a lot of money to Dougie. They could. That's why I think some, deals are going to be made.
So in the end, it's probably going to be that Brady Shea is the one that's exposed and Brady Shea is the one that's taken. So the most likely and best possible case scenario is what we're working with.
Yeah. I don't know if you're a Canes fan, do you want to keep Gardner or do you want to keep Shea and like give them a 4th round pick to take Gardner?
I think having Jake Bean kind of makes, Gardner expendable. I mean, they have, because they're both of their primary skills, on the power play. And Bean's been pretty good on just overall. I mean, he's been better than I thought he would be so far.
Yeah, I think so too. He hasn't even improved in the AHL. I don't know. That's losing Shea would suck, but that's $5 million we can pay. Dougie with. It's $5 million we can pay Svechnikov with.
We've got all those forwards. We can make a trade for a defensive player next season or over the summer as well.
Yeah, that's true. And we're 7 guys that we're gonna like protect isn't really gonna matter. We're gonna have to expose maybe a Fogel or Faust or Geeky and we might even have to expose like Peter. We'll probably protect Ned, or I don't know. It's gonna come down between those two.
It's probably a good thing that Peter won tonight and they had that comeback win against the Blackhawks, because if he had lost, I think our ruthless fans would have turned on Peter and jumped fully on board the Ned boat, which isn't a bad boat to be on. But at the same time, I don't want to throw away Peter Mrazek just because he had an injured season and act like he hasn't been a great goalie for us for the past 3 years. So.
Yeah, that's true. You never know with goalies like year to year. It's so hard to have a consistent goalie year to year.
Oh yeah, I mean, look at Cam Ward. You have seasons where he's literally the greatest goalie I've ever seen in my entire life, and you have some seasons where you're like, wow, when's he gonna retire? You never, like you said, you just never know.
Even Marc-Andre Fleury had he was really good and then really terrible, and he was just he was notable to be bad in the playoffs for the early 2010s, and then he went to Vegas and he's just the playoff superstar. And then Matt Murray, he's in Ottawa, which they suck, but he's got the worst save percentage under expectation right now. So it's so hard to judge a goalie from team to team, from year to year even.
Like Thomas Greiss was a force to be reckoned with in New York with the Islanders, and then they sent him to Detroit, and it's the man can't buy a win.
To bring it all back, I think Seattle is going to poach defensemen from us if they're smart. We have Shea, Gardner, and Bean if we choose to sign Hamilton before the draft or before he goes to the UFA discussions with Seattle. A lot's going to hinge on Dougie's contract, and we're not going to know what is available to Seattle. I think we're going to have a side deal no matter what.
But yeah, before we move on to the next question, I just want to give a shout out to, turns out our most prominent listener base for the podcast is in Huff, Ohio. So I guess there's some devout Caniacs in Huff, Ohio that prefer our team to the Blue Jackets.
Rightfully so.
And then we also have some listeners and reliable listeners, like they listen to every episode in France and in Finland. Finland's not that surprising, but France kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah. One day we'll make it to North Carolina.
Maybe.
There's Caniacs all over the world and in the galaxy. According to Trip Tracy, Chewbacca is a huge Caniac.
I think Rod called him Chewbacca, so we're gonna go with Chewbacca. But yeah, I think we'll follow along with that question that Caniac Chelsea gave us about the expansion draft, and we'll move into Caniac Tanner's question, which is, what are your thoughts on the expansion draft?
I think from a team perspective, obviously it makes it frustrating, but I will counter that with I love the expansion draft. I think it's great for the league. I think it's good for the sport because you're introducing these new markets to the sport, and you don't want to just give them a crap team. You're trying to build a fan base, build support in that area. So, you're giving them a shot to compete. It's up to their GM ultimately to build the team. And like they might be the complete opposite of Vegas and start off sucking.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think they need to be competitive out the gate to like draw attention to the team. And especially like new fans that haven't watched hockey in the area, they want to watch wins. And right now, the rules are favoring them to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you all. It's tough for the teams, but it's good for the league. You don't want teams to roll in and then just be an easy win for the other conferences. Like you don't want a bunch of Buffaloes running around in the league. And it also creates stories. Like there was no bigger story than Vegas going to the Stanley Cup, their expansion year. So I think it's cool. I don't hate the expansion draft. It's just stressful to deal with. It just seems like it's happening a lot right now. And I think that's probably why it's so stressful because it's been 4 years since Vegas did it.
What if Buffalo exposed our old friend Jeff Skinner?
What if Ron Francis wanted Jeff Skinner? He's like, I'm going to rehabilitate that boy. I'm going to slap his ass, feed him a Bo Berry, and he'll be good as new.
One thing I'd like to add from the team perspective is we have the ultimate X factor when it comes to expansion drafts, and we have turtlenecks. So we literally have nothing to worry about.
In turtleneck we trust. Sorry, Caniac Andrew sent me a last-minute question.
Tell Caniac Andrew he can wait till next week.
Anyway, Caniac Roman wants to know how they're going to do the division championship. Do we think regular season wins will still allow us to raise a Central Division banner even if we don't make the final?
I'm pretty sure Tripp actually mentioned that. Supreme Leader Tripp mentioned that in the broadcast tonight. He said something about if they win the division during the regular season, they could raise a banner. That might also just be a habit of like an old habit, from seasons past.
I mean, I just imagine that the Canes will adapt a way to hang a banner. I mean, even if they hang a banner that says Carolina Hurricanes, champions of COVID, like they'll find a way to raise a banner this season, I think. I don't think anyone's super concerned with banners at the moment just because we're all focused. It's the same thing as the President's Trophy. We're all pretty focused on getting the Stanley Cup champions banner. And
right,
we'll take whatever banner we get in the end, but we want to keep our eyes on the main prize for the time being. I guess we'll move on to the question authored by Caniac Jason and Caniac Johnny. They both asked the same question at the same time. Which goalie do we think is going to get the first game of the playoffs?
Can I give you my gut reaction, and then can I give you the right or like what we should do? What is going to happen is Peter Mrazek is going to start. What should happen is Ned should start because he is playing out of his mind and he's confident, and he I don't know, when he plays, he's just he adds like an extra element to our game, like the way he puck handles. We don't have another goalie that could do that.
I think Scott Darling is going to get the start. You're both wrong. No one saw that one coming. Just kidding. I actually think Ned's going to get the start. I think just because of the coach that Rod is, he's going to go, this was Ned's season, and Ned deserves the first start. And I don't think anyone should be surprised by that either.
Yeah, I think if the playoffs started tomorrow, it would be Ned. But a lot's going to hinge on these 2 games against Nashville, because if we play them the first round, and Peter is like, all right, 40 save shutout, 35 save shutout against Nashville, then we're like, all right, we play Nashville round 1, and then we start Ned, people are gonna be like, why didn't you play Peter? So I think it's a lot's gonna hinge on the next week.
It all boils down to this: Ned earned it. But yeah, Pace, I think you're right. It's a good problem to have. Hell, honestly, we could start Reimer the first game, and I don't think it'd be the greatest idea, but I wouldn't lose a lot of sleep over it, depending on who we played. If we played Nashville, sure, whatever, use Reimer. I don't care.
It's crazy to go a whole season without I don't know. I don't know how many games you can say this, but you look at the game that you lost and say, man, I wish we would have had a different goalie in that. That would have been the difference, you know. Like I don't think we've had that many times this season.
No, not even in the 18-19 season with McElhinney. I never felt that the loss was the result of the goalie. Which brings us to our next question, which I think is going to be it's going to derail this whole podcast, and I think it's fine. I think people actually would want to hear this. A lot of people have been tweeting at Adam Gold about it for his take about this particular subject, and why listen to Adam Gold would you listen to us ramble about it? We've got like 230 followers on Twitter. We don't do the dishes during our takes, so yeah, welcome to the Redneck Hockey Podcast. We're gonna answer questions and not do the dishes. According to Johnny, Kaniak Johnny, it was a rhetorical question, but we're gonna answer it anyway. Why is Tom Wilson such a prick, and why is he allowed in the league still? Does anyone want to explain the situation?
I wasn't watching the game live, but it was I think everyone's seen the highlight now. It's there's a scrum in front of the net, and Buchnevich from the Rangers is down, and he's got his head in a vulnerable position, and Wilson just smashes his head from the back of his head, and Buchnevich can't do anything, and then some Ranger players try to get him off of him. He starts shoving Panarin, and he grabs Panarin by the back of the hair and like just slew foots him down to the ice and slams his head kind of in the ice. And $5,000 fine, and that's it.
Well, the Buchnevich hit was weird because he fell down and he's in this awkward position. He's pinned down by Wilson's stick between his neck and the ice. And then Wilson just starts punching him while he's down. So Panarin starts going after him. They get into a little scrum behind the boards. Tom Wilson gets his helmet off. He grabs him by the hair and throws him helmetless onto the ice. And so his head hits the ice. And as soon as his head hits the ice, he keeps punching him. Naturally, everyone's pissed off because it's Tom Wilson, and everyone gets pissed off at what Tom Wilson does all the time anyway, because he's such a huge asshole and he's known for dirty plays and, basically threatening players' careers. And like Connor just said, the NHL safety watch, whatever the NHL safety watch,
Paris,
it's called.
yeah.
Basically, it's like, here's a $5,000 fine. Leave us alone. And Twitter and Instagram and all other forms of social media, I don't get on anything else other than those, has been set ablaze, and everyone is pissed. Everyone is calling for Tom Wilson's head. They want him removed from the league indefinitely.
And the Rangers announced, they issued a statement too, dropping the mic on the player safety department. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? They get $5,000.
They'll probably suspend the Rangers for 10 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to give props to the Rangers and their social media for posting that. I mean, that was definitely a must.
Yeah. Well, it's the only way they're going to get anything out of it. You have to think, they're probably pretty pissed off too, because Panarin's, I think he's out for the rest of the season because of that hit. He's probably on concussion protocol, but it's caused quite the stir because even the Rangers' request was that Wilson be removed from the league indefinitely, which was no small request. I mean, it's not like they were saying this is BS, $5,000, where's the 10-game fine? They said, no, I want this man out of the league. It'll be interesting to see those teams play again.
Yeah, they're gonna pull up somebody. I don't know. They're gonna sign some heavyweight boxer on a one-day contract.
They're probably sending feelers to Ryan Reeves right now. They're like, that man has slapped the living crap out of Tom Wilson so many times. They might as well just pick him up and put him on the team.
The Rangers asked for the NHL head of player safety. They said he was unfit to continue his current role. So they're just coming for everybody's heads.
I don't know if y'all saw this, but I think Ryan Whitney from Spittin' Chicklets came out and he was like, y'all are crazy. You're not going to get an indefinite suspension. And I think he also said it was stupid. I mean, not verbatim, but he basically was like, that wasn't worth an indefinite suspension. And, of course, fans start railing on him. They hate the Spitting Chicklets guys because they're just so brash. But
yeah, and that's not what the Rangers are trying to do. It's, they're just trying to back up their players and stuff like that.
Yeah. I get why the Rangers said what they did. I think I get Whitney's point of view too.
Oh yeah. I know what you're saying.
Do you think, I mean, I guess that's what I'm getting at is, do you think it's worth suspending Tom Wilson from the league forever? We're about to lose a bunch of followers to this discussion.
Certainly brings up the case for them to raise how much they can fine players. But to answer Johnny's original rhetoric question of why he's still allowed to be in the league is because of this, literally what we are doing right now. It brings attention into the league, whether it's good or bad. Any news is good news. It's good publicity because people are talking about you. And that doesn't make what he did right, but it does make, for some good conversation. I mean, like radio show hosts all over the country are talking about this. And let's face it, like hockey's not typically like something they talk about on your local sports talk radio stations.
Right. That doesn't justify keeping Tom Wilson around, but it is absolutely 120% the reason why the NHL is not going to do anything about this.
It's really good
because
point.
they want people to talk, they want the videos, they want this to be, they want Tom Wilson to trend on Twitter. It works for them until someone gets fired.
He's basically like Lucic. I mean, that's why he's in the league.
It's interesting because Tom Wilson's actually like a really good player. His stats are great. He's a fantasy dream because he's not only does he score and get assists, but he gets a ton of penalty minutes. So it's not like he needs to do the things that he does, but he still does them. I don't know about y'all, but I definitely went on a YouTube rampage just watching Ryan Reeves beat the shit out of Tom Wilson clips. And I was like, inject this straight into my veins. But we were watching like me and Chelsea were watching like Kaniak Chelsea. We're watching just like montages of like bad hits. And of course, you see like Chuck and you see Tom Wilson and Ryan Reeves and Sean Avery and just players like that. And Brad Marchand. But it's something different about Tom Wilson's hits where like he literally looks like he's trying to murder you. Like if he wasn't an NHL player, I'd think he was a serial killer. Like whereas Brad Marchand, like he hurts players and it's usually pretty costly. And there are a lot of really dangerous hits, but there's something about his style where he just seems like a little gremlin, like giggly, like almost kind of like a funny evil. Whereas like Tom Wilson is like just an asshole.
Yeah, he's sadistic.
Yeah.
I mean, having Ovechkin as the captain is not going to he's not going to be the one like, hey, chill out, dude.
Ovechkin has no problem sticking his nose and stuff like that too. I've seen plenty of bad hits from him. You remember him in his early days? Ovechkin didn't care, dude. He was probably scrappier than Svech. He would fight people. He would take people out. I mean, Ovechkin was a problem for a lot of people.
Around all the time when like there were suspensions left and right for boarding and they were like really cracking down that was Ovechkin. Like he got suspended for that a couple times and he was really dirty. Now he just coasts in the power play.
I've always believed Tom Wilson's one of those players that like nobody likes, but if he was on your team, you probably would think a little differently. But I just like as a Capitals fan, I don't think that I could like him, like support that hit. Like that was just so egregious.
Can we take a moment to laugh about when Warren Fogle had that just soft behind the back check on TJ Oshie and TJ Oshie miraculously forgot how to skate and he fell and hurt himself trying to take a dive. And Mia Khalifa tweeted at Fogle like he was Tom Wilson. And everyone was like, dude, look at your team. Look at who's on your team. And you think Warren Fogle is the world's most evil hockey player of all time. And you have Tom Wilson on the bench.
Yeah, as a Blues fan, seeing like Oshie would fall like 10 times a game. That was just like seeing him fall in that hit was like, oh shit. That's like, Oshie falls again, but everyone started calling for Fogle's head. And I was like, oh, I guess that he like made some contact, but you're just so used to Oshie having Bambi feet is like watching him. But the Capitals fans haven't been watching hockey since they won the Stanley Cup. So
yeah, I mean, I've always said that I wish the Canes had an enforcer. I mean, we have Yanni Hakanpää, but I've yet to see him rip Hornquist's throat out yet. So that's remains to be seen. But I wish we had an enforcer, but I don't want him to be like Tom. I don't want him to be like Tom Wilson. I'll take a Ryan Reeves every day of the week. I'll take Ryan Reeves, but I don't want Tom Wilson on my team.
Did you guys see Supreme Leader Tripp on the broadcast against the first game of the Blackhawks against Blackhawks this week, where he just like openly called for Zadorov's blood?
No, I didn't see it.
He kept saying somebody needs to make him answer for that hit on Teravainen earlier in the season because apparently it was the hit that caused the concussion on TT.
Tripp Tracy's not a fan of Zadorov.
He doesn't like the cheap hits in the league. I mean, Tripp's always talking about how bad cross-checking is. Oh, but go back to the point about Tom Wilson. A lot of people are calling about how they needed to remove like violence from the sport. And I think the fans are taking their hatred for Tom Wilson to a level that they don't want to go. Like there has to be some level of violence in hockey because it is an inherently violent sport. And I mean, I'm tired of having the conversation about fighting in the NHL anyway, because if you still don't comprehend the need for enforcers when you just watch Tom Wilson throw someone's face into the ice, then, I can't help you. But hockey needs to be fast paced. It needs to be physical. It needs to be somewhat violent. It just doesn't need to be dangerous and cheap. And, like there has to be some level of honor in the way you play. You go back to the Broad Street Flyers days, those guys had a lot of honor and they beat the living crap out of each other. It was the most violent time in the NHL. It's still an honor. Like there's still honor in the game. It's the problem with Wilson is that he has no damn honor.
Yeah, you got to play with an edge as much as you can. I think he's just got to find that somewhere. I don't know. Maybe he needs to speak to somebody. Violence is going to like just breed more violence. And, you know, George Paris is going to be like shocked Pikachu face, like that the New York Rangers are responding with violence. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if like Tom Wilson like took a rest day next.
The NHL is going to be like, get that man back out on the ice. We need more news articles, more views. Mm-hmm. I bet it'll be one of the most watched games of the year.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. I didn't think about the league wanting the infamy. That's a really good point that you guys brought up.
Well, that's it for the questions. Y'all got any other things we want to discuss?
Did Jeff Skinner score this week?
Now that the season's pretty much ended and I have no more ad drop, the only player on my watch list for fantasy hockey is Jeff Skinner, just so that I can look up the answer to the question for did Jeff Skinner score this week?
I know he got an assist.
He got an assist. He has not scored since April 25th.
God.
So it's been a while. Way to go, Jeff.
9 million.
9 million.
How many Bowberries did we get this week?
Oh, I feel like we probably got one every game now that I think about it.
Are you guys going to get the Bowberries after the game?
I'm not. I never go get we go get the Chick-fil-A brownies, but I for whatever reason I don't ever go to Bojangles and say I'm a Caniac and it's bow time. Not that I don't want to. I just don't think about it.
I said it once to the drive-thru, and they had no idea what I was saying. And I just I said it, and I said, never mind. And then I ended up paying for the Bowberry biscuit. Because I was just so embarrassed. I didn't want to repeat it.
I've done it in the drive-thru too. And the manager like spoke to me when I got to the window, and I had to tell them like what the promo was. And they went and looked it up and were like, oh, you're right.
A little caveat that I think we brought this up in the very first podcast we recorded, but it never made it to the light of day. But when Connor and I lived together, we had a Jeff Skinner toilet plunger. So it was a broken Jeff Skinner stick with a toilet plunger end on the end. And I still have it in my bathroom. Maybe I'll take a picture and share it with the listeners one day.
That's a good one. That stick is second clogged more toilets than he scored goal.
Thanks, Jeff. Has anyone confirmed that the Marley Girl is actually coming next Thursday to be the siren spinner?
Until Trip Tracy says it so, I'm still skeptical.
I feel like they would have brought it up tonight if that was really happening.
Yep, to bring fans to the game. I think to bring all the perverts to the game.
Spiking 50 to 60-year-old men showing up for the game.